y'all, I'm Missy and thank you for watching this video. Today I'm going to be making a wonderful dish. I love it. It's called boova shenkel. It is Pennsylvania Dutch, and as you know, the Pennsylvania Dutch are famous for stick to your ribs comfort food, and I love cooking it. I also love eating it, as you can see. So I'm going to show you a few of the things that I'm going to be using today. I'm going to be using this rolling pin set, okay, that I got on Amazon. And these rings are different sizes, okay? And you can put a different size ring on the end, on each side, and that will help you determine the thickness of your dough. I have the 1/8 inch on here, I believe, or it could be the 1/4 inch. But anyway, yeah, it's the 1/8 inch. I'm sorry. Probably about $20 on Amazon. I'll have links in the description box below. And I'm going to be using these dumpling presses, or empanada makers, whatever you want to call them. There's 5 in this box. I'm not really sure about the name of this brand, but again, link in the description box below. I'm going to be using the 3 inch. This has several sizes in it. It has 5 different sizes, but the 3 inch, because I also picked up these cute little individual casserole dishes. Okay, I got these at Boscov's, but you can also pick these up on Crate and Barrel. I may have gotten the last ones on Boscov's. They might be out right now. I don't know. You can check with them. That's completely up to you. And they're made by Fiddle and Fern. And I love Fiddle and Fern stuff. It's just out of this world. So cute. They make the best stuff for cooking and whatnot. You don't have to use these, by the way, to make this dish. You can put this all in one pot and serve this family style. That is the most common way that it is served, but I'm going to be using individual dishes. And of course, this handy dandy pastry mat came in the same box with this, and so it's really nice to have if you need measurements to cut pastries and whatnot. So now I'm going to get on the ingredients list, so stick around. So here I have about 12 medium potatoes peeled, chopped into big chunks. How long am I going to boil them? I don't know. I'll just keep poking at them until they're fork tender, and they're not yet, so can't really put a time on it. I just keep checking them. One of the things I love about this recipe is it's very friendly for using things like leftovers, and you can also make substitutions. I'm going to be using beef bouillon to create a beef broth because I'm out of beef broth, which is totally fine. I got 2 pounds of beef, and it's a stew beef, and I got probably 1.5 cups of onions right here and 1.5 cups of baby carrots right there. Now I'm going to see if these are done. I'm going to get me a big old chunk of potato, okay, and I'm going to see if it's fork tender. Should just flake apart just like that. Yes, they are done. I'm ready to make mashed potatoes. So now it's time to mash our potatoes. I got 1/2 stick of salted butter in here, and I got 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. Now, this recipe doesn't call for a thin, soupy mashed potato. This needs to be a full-bodied mashed potato, okay, on the firm side, okay, on the thick side, and also it is okay to have lumps. Okay, in my opinion, that makes it better. Now, if you want to make your potatoes smoother, that's fine. But I'll just do a basic mash, all right, with this nice old-timey potato masher here. I think this is the best thing since sliced bread. I love it. And so I'm going to finish mashing these potatoes, and then I'm going to let them cool and continue with the recipe. Now, I'm using salted butter, so I want to get this blended well before adding any salt. Okay, and some people would add like maybe some chives or maybe some parsley or something a little green to these mashed potatoes. I've also seen peas, green peas, probably frozen peas that have been thawed out and maybe cooked down a little bit. Maybe even canned peas would work. But anyway, you can do that or not. It is up to you. I'm not going to be using anything else in the mashed potatoes because I'm just going to use what I got on hand, and that's just mashed potatoes. So anyway, this is the consistency that I think they should be. This is the consistency I like. As you see, there's nothing running through. All right, nice thick mashed potato. Alrighty then, I got my mashed potatoes there all fixed up in a pretty bowl off to the side. And I've got a couple of, I've got me a skillet here with about, I don't know, 1/4 inch of oil in it. And I'm going to brown this meat on both sides. Then I got this little kettle here, this little Dutch oven, doing the same thing over here. Have to divide it up because, you know, we got 2 pounds here. So once the meat is brown on all sides, it is time to put it all right here in this big old Dutch oven. Alrighty, got 3 cups of water here and 4 bouillon cubes. And as soon as it dissolves, I'm going to add it to this pot right here. About that oil that I had in this pot here and in the skillet to fry this beef, we don't drain that. We put that in the pot. That's flavor. Alright, we need that. So we don't drain that. This is not a dish for the weight conscious or health conscious. This is comfort food. Alrighty, I put about half my onions in there and half my carrots because I want different textures going on with my onions and carrots. So some of them are going to be really cooked down and some of them are going to have, you know, a little bit more of a solid texture. So in a couple of hours I'm going to check the beef, and when it gets just about tender, that's when I'll add the rest of the onions and carrots and cook it down a bit more. So now it's time to add our bouillon. We're going to put a lid on that, put it in the oven on about 350 for about 2 hours, and then I'm going to give it a check. So I gave it a little taste before putting it in the oven. I decided to go ahead and add 1 more cup of water. Another little word, you can also use a cup of wine in this or a cup of beer if you wanted to, or like I said, you can stay with a beef stock or beef broth. So now we're in the oven at 350. Little word to the new chefs out there, the new home chefs, the new cooks, is if your lid has a plastic knob on it, probably not oven safe. So best to go there with aluminum foil as far as covering it there on the top. But do make sure it's covered. I'm going to give it a check in a couple hours. So this has been in the oven for about 2 hours. And I'm going to test the tenderness of the beef. I don't think it's ready. Okay, because it should just kind of shred apart. And as you can see, I'm kind of really having to work at it. So it's still too tough. Needs to go back in there. You get back in that. Alright. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add the other onions and carrots, okay, and give those a stir. Pop it back in the oven and I'll check it in about an hour. In the meantime, I'm going to get going on the pastry dough for our potato pierogies or potato dumplings, whatever you want to call them. A little note about this broth, it is very fatty, okay, it is very oily because I said, you know, leave all that during the cooking process. Going to make an adjustment at the very end, okay, so don't worry about all that fat, okay, and I'm going to add a cup of frozen peas because I'm just feeling like a rebel, alright, and I'd like to see a little bit more color in there, okay, and so now, back in the oven we go. Now it's time to make the dough for the potato dumplings, so follow me. Here's what you're going to need. You're going to need 4 cups of flour, okay? I've got that in a nice big heavy bowl. As a matter of fact, this is the liner for a crock pot. And then I have 1 cup of flour on reserve for flouring my surface that I'm going to be pressing the dough onto. I have 3 tablespoons of baking powder. Make sure it's baking powder. I have 2 teaspoons of regular salt. This is not a job for sea salt. Of course, I'm going to need my my dumpling press. Alright. I'm going to need a dough cutter. Okay. That's what it looks like. It's going to be a lot easier if you use one of these. I'm going to need a knife. I'm going to need a cutting board. And here's a little tip or trick. Put your cutting board on a kitchen towel to keep it from slipping around. It'll stay more stable that way. And of course, I recommend that you have all of your measuring spoons, all of your measuring cups, all of your ingredients all together. And we're going to be using this to grate our frozen butter. And we're going to need 2 sticks of frozen butter, which is 1 cup. So let me grab that. And there we go. It is salted butter. Alright, you can use unsalted, that's fine. And we want our dough, though, to have flavor. So we are also going to need about 2 cups of ice water. I don't have the ice in there yet. I'm getting ready to put ice in it so it'll be nice and cold. All right, so let me head over here, put some ice cubes in our water to get it cold. All right, so there we go. It can be getting cold while we're mixing the dough. All right, so what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start mixing the dry ingredients together. So I'm going to add this baking powder. Don't get baking soda, get baking powder. And since the butter is salted, I'm going to use maybe 1 teaspoon of salt, okay? Because I didn't happen to think about the butter being salted. Okay, and then I'm going to take a spoon and I'm going to mix all the dry ingredients together very well. All right? I'm going to take my time doing this. Okay. I'm just kind of showing you what I'm doing there. All right. And make sure you're using all-purpose flour, by the way. Not self-rising. It has to be all-purpose. Okay. And now we're going to grate some butter because we want it to be in small pieces. And it's easier to do that if your butter has been frozen. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it over my bowl, and I'm just going to start grating the butter. And as I have grated some butter, I'll slowly start to mix it in. Alright? So, in order, it is the dry ingredients getting mixed together, then it's the grated butter. You don't have to use grated butter. You know, frozen butter, you can chop it up or whatever. I just prefer to do it this way. All right, and there'll come a point when, you know, I really can't manage this with my fingers anymore without running into the grater, but I'm going to do about half a stick of butter. All right, and then I'm going to start mixing it up some. So let me grab a spoon. I don't know what happened to my spoon. All right. And I'm going to give it a little mix. I'm going to do like a gradual mix on this so that I don't have a big clump of shredded butter sitting on top of my dough. All right. So here we go. And it's about to get to the point where I can't really manage this now. So I'm going to have to be really careful not to slice into my finger or hand or whatever with this. All right, and I'm using the large holes to grate. It would be too difficult, I think, to use the small. Okay, and it's starting to get to where, you know, I have maybe a tablespoon of butter left. That's okay. It doesn't have to be 2 whole sticks. Just do the best you can. I'll probably just take this last little bit and just chop it up. Okay, so in order to avoid injuring my fingers, that's what I'm going to do. So now I'm going to give this another little stir. Okay. Now it's time to take this second stick of butter. Do the same thing. And to avoid boredom with this video, I'm going to cut it off and finish this. Okay, I'm back. We're going to finish making our dough. So I have all the butter in here, all right? And I'm just going to take my hands and I'm going to start to just blend the butter and the flour together into little granules, okay? Usually you want to say, you know, it has to be pea-sized granules. And when it's all mixed up, okay, and it's all blended together and you have a bowl full of granules, then it will be time. And this is better with both hands, but you know, I'm just trying to show you what I'm doing here. You want this done really well. You want the granules to be mostly what's in the bowl or all of what's in the bowl, okay? You don't want large amounts of flour that have not been incorporated into the butter, okay? And then after that, we're going to start adding the ice water. So for the sake of not boring you, I'm going to turn it off and finish getting the butter and flour incorporated and all blended together very well. Hey y'all, I'm back. Now it's time to add the ice water. We're gonna add it a little at a time. Maybe in 1/4 cup increments, okay? And then we're gonna mix with our hands, okay? We may not need all this water. That's why we wanna add a little at a time. I just wanted to have plenty in the cup that was ice cold, okay, to get this process started, all right? And to avoid boredom again, I'm gonna turn the camera off here in a second, but as you can see, it's gonna get messy, it's gonna stick to your hands and whatnot. And the goal is to get this to where it's all one solid lump of dough, all right? And so there's still too much flour, all right? And I'm pulling from the bottom of the bowl to get the flour that hasn't, that's still kind of dry, to get that incorporated, you know, to get it more wet. And so I'm going to have to add some more water to this. I'm going to add maybe another 1/4 cup and continue this process until I have a nice lump of flour and dough mixture. Okay, so I'm going to finish this up and I'll come right back. Okay, here we go. So, as you can see, I only used about a cup of that water. Like I said, I just wanted to have plenty on hand. Now, if you make a mistake and get your dough too wet, okay, you can add a little flour until the consistency gets right. And here's what you should have. You should have a ball kind of like this, all right? And it's sticking to my hands a little bit, but not too much. Oh, you want to be sure to remove your rings, okay? Take them off your fingers before you start this project. Okay, and what we're going to do with this ball is we're going to lay it out on this here, okay, and we're going to make a large disc. Okay, so right now it's a little too big, okay. What we want to do is we want to cut it in half, all right. So I'm going to put it on the cutting board. I don't want to put it here because this knife will ruin this here, so we don't want to do it that way. So I'm going to cut this in half, all right, and I'm going to make a ball with this. As you can see, the consistency, like I said, it is wet, but it is you know, not sticking to my hands and fingers so much. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to cut these in half again, okay? Because I want this to be easy to work with. And, you know, the smaller it is, you know, the smaller sections you work with, the easier it will be. All right, so I'm going to get these worked up, rolled into balls, and then we're going to put some flour down. All right, spread it around real good. All right, because we don't want it sticking to our mat here. All right, and then put a little flour on my hands. All right, so I can handle this a little bit better. Okay, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a disc. All right, it's going to be round. All right, and I'm going to mash it out to about, a 1/2 inch. All right, and I'm going to do that with all of these. And I'm going to turn it this way with some flour here. All right, about like so. And that is about a 6-inch, 7-inch disc, and it's about a 1/2 inch thick. Now, I'm going to repeat this process with all the other ones, and I want to try to make it as even as I can. Okay, and then these are going to go in the refrigerator for about half an hour. But first they have to be wrapped in plastic wrap. So I'm going to wrap this little doodad up. All right. I'm using the press and seal. You can use regular plastic wrap if you want. I just like this better. All right. Then I'm going to set this on a plate and repeat the process with all of these. Okay, I have my discs of dough all wrapped up separately. Gonna put them in the refrigerator now for about half an hour, maybe an hour. Oh, I forgot to show y'all something earlier. Okay, I got these cute little casseroles, all right? These came from Everything Kitchens, and the brand is Mason Cash. I love these. I really do. And so I'm gonna be using these too. Okay, again, they are oven safe, microwave safe, dishwasher safe. Can you beat that? All right, and they're about, that's probably about a 6-inch diameter, and I think it's going to be perfect for this dish. So I have about 4 of these, and I have about 4 of the fiddle and fern. So I just wanted to show these to y'all, and there'll be a link in the description box below. All right, let's take a look at our beef stew. Okay, what I'm looking for is when I go into a piece of this meat with a fork, it just comes right apart. It's fork tender. I don't have to work too hard. It just shreds apart with a fork. All right, so basically it's done. And as you can see, a lot of that broth and a lot of the pan juices, okay, that we dumped in here have evaporated, and some have absorbed into the meat. But we're still going to adjust this, okay, so that it's not so dry, and so that it's not so much meat, you know, so that it's more of an even mixture. Hi y'all, I'm back, and it's time to start making the pierogies. I've taken a disc of dough out of the refrigerator and getting ready to roll it out. So I'm going to spread my flour around. Okay, and I'm going to put some flour on both sides. All right. Just a light dusting. Okay. Spread it all around my surface as much as I can. I might just need to get some fresh flour here. That's what it looks like to me. Alrighty. Now it's time to start rolling out the dough. This is kind of the exciting part. So I'm going to roll one way. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it. I'm going to roll the other way. And I'm going to keep rolling until I have it the thickness of these rings here. And it's not quite thin enough yet. Okay, I'm getting some lift on the rolling pin, so I want to flour the rolling pin some. And I want to flour the dough just a little bit. Just sprinkle a little on there, spread it around. That's going to happen, by the way. And then turn it. And it's just easier to work with this dough after it's been in the refrigerator for about an hour. So I'm just going to try to get it thinner. And like I said, these little pieces right here are going to ensure that the thickness is uniform. And I have it, these rings are 1/8 inch, I believe. Okay, let's see if I can turn it, flip it without breaking it. And yes, I can, and you should be able to if the dough is nice and cold. All right, but once it gets so thin, it'll get a little bit harder to do that. All right. I need to pull this down just a little bit. Got to be careful, you know, don't tear your dough. All right. And so these little rings are now on the surface of my pastry mat, okay, which is what I want. And I just love this thing because it just makes the perfect thickness. Uniform all the way around. I don't have to go back and work out the center or work out the edges or whatever. This just does it for me. And, you know, that's what I like. The less I have to do, the happier I am in the kitchen. Now, I could just cook all day long. I'm a long-haul truck driver by trade. However, when I come home, I can't wait to cook some home-cooked meals. I can't wait to eat my own cooking. So now it's time to start making some dumplings. okay? So I'm gonna lay this dumpling press like this, okay? And I'm gonna go kind of to the edge, okay? And I'm gonna press down. And there we have a circle. And I'm gonna make another one. I wanna make sure that there's dough all the way under this. So there we have 2. Looks like we can get 4 out of this. Okay, and now it's time to fill our dumplings. We need to lay our dough on top of the dumpling press, okay, or the pierogi press, whatever you want to call it. And now it's time to fill it with potato mixture. Alrighty then. Now, I took about half of that mashed potato mixture that I made. I'm going to use the other half if I need to in this recipe. If not, I'm going to use it for another recipe. So I always just make extra, okay, because that saves time and that saves electricity and so on to cook in larger batches, in my opinion. Alright, so we have our mashed potatoes. Also, my wonderful darling husband went to the store and he bought some parsley because I didn't have any fresh parsley, and so I took about maybe a couple of tablespoons, okay, and I chopped it up because I like for the potatoes to have a little color. And so since he, didn't mind picking it up, I'm going to go ahead and use it. And I've got 2 eggs here that I'm going to beat well because we need a binder, okay, for these pierogies or potato dumplings. Alrighty. So that's just about got it. Alright. A little bit more. Alright. Because I want this to get mixed really well. And it's going to help hold the potato filling together. Now, this is not Pennsylvania Dutch potato filling. That is a whole different thing that you can use in this recipe. And traditionally, that is what is used in this recipe. And it includes some other ingredients, okay, that I don't have in here. So if you want to make Pennsylvania Dutch potato filling to go into these potato dumplings, by all means look up the recipe and do so. But I'm going to take a shortcut and I'm just going to do mashed potatoes with a little parsley and some egg. So, I'm going to take a spoon now and I'm going to mix this all up. Get it really mixed up together really well. Make a nice smooth filling. This is another reason why you want to start with a really thick mashed potato, okay? Because you're going to be adding the eggs and that is going to thin it down a little bit. So the thicker the better as far as starting out. So here's what we have. Alright, see that? That's what you want. See how that sticks to that spoon? Alright. Now, here comes the fun part. I love this part. Okay, we have our little press, okay, and it has the dough in it. And I'm just going to push that down just a little bit, right? And I'm going to add some potato filling. And I'm just going to kind of level it off. I don't want to add too much. You don't want to get too much because it'll be a mess. Matter of fact, that is too much. Alright, so let me take some of that out. I'm making a mess. So, anyway, there we go. Now, I'm just going to kind of spread that. I want to keep it inside the depression. I don't want to pull it outside. Okay, I don't want to get it outside onto this part because that is going to be what makes the pierogi stick together. Okay, so now it's nice and flat. Alright, let me rinse my hands off. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit of this ice water here. Okay, and I'm going to run it along the edges. Alright, and then I'm going to close my press. Okay, so you'll notice that it'll shrink away from the edges just a little bit when you put the potato filling in, and Now we're just going to close it. Okay, and that seals it. Isn't that just beautiful? Isn't that just perfect? Just perfect. All right, and so this is going to go on top, okay, of the beef stew. And so I'm going to make some more of these, and then we're going to put it all together. Okay, so now the beef stew, I have found it to be a little dry, but I did put some gloves on. I took my fingers and I broke the meat up, you know, to make it easier to eat. And I'm going to add some more bullion broth because, you know, it's really dry. So I want to fix that. And so, you know, you can adjust recipes as you go. It's not a big deal, just as long as you know what to do and when to do it. And I believe that this situation calls for a bit more broth. So I've put 2 cups of water and 2 bouillon cubes. And as soon as that dissolves, I'm going to add it to this mixture. Okay, I'm going to put a tablespoon of butter in the microwave and soften it a little bit. It's okay if it even melts. Then I'm going to add a tablespoon of flour, and I'm going to use that to thicken my beef stew. Okay, so this is all mixed up now. I wouldn't really call this a roux. Some people might call it a very blonde roux. I don't know, but it's just flour and butter, okay? And the purpose for mixing it with softened butter is because that keeps the flour from clumping, okay? And so now I'm going to add this to the stew and give it a stir. Okay, I added the flour and butter mixture, okay, to the stew. And now it's time to start putting this together. Okay, so I have my Mason Cash individual casserole dish. And this is the consistency that I like. It's gonna thicken up a little bit when it goes back into the oven because of the flour and flour and butter mixture that I use to thicken it. But as you can see, it's not a lot of water. You know, it's not a lot of it's more beef and carrots and peas and whatnot. Okay, and if you want this to be reduced sodium or less sodium, use less bouillon, okay? Because bouillon has a lot of salt. So instead of 1 bouillon to 1 cup, you would do 1 bouillon to 2 cups of water, okay? Now, of course, after you make your dumplings, you want to keep them on a floured surface, okay? And now we put these pretty little dumplings right like that, right on top of the stew. And that's why it needs to be a thick stew, because these dumplings need to sit on top, okay? And then we'll cover this, and then we'll bake it at about 350, and we'll check it in about half an hour. Okay, I'm going to show you what I've put together for my son. I'm going to visit him tomorrow, and so I have taken about 1.5 cups of the beef stew. Okay, I put it in here, all right? And I'm going to take this lid, turn it upside down, and instead of placing these on top, you know, and putting it in the fridge overnight like that and everything, I'm just going to tell him that before he decides to put these in the oven, you know, just to take these dumplings out and place them on top, okay, and then flip the lid over and bake at 350 for about half an hour, and then check them a little, you know, every few minutes, like every 5 minutes after that. And so I'm going to take some press and seal, and I'm going to wrap these up real good to take to my son tomorrow. In about half an hour, and they still seem just a little bit undercooked, a little doughy to me. So I'm going to pop them back in the oven covered, and I'm going to check them in about 10 more minutes. Okay, this is about 45 minutes in, and they're looking pretty good. Now I want to pop them in the oven uncovered for about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, I put it back in the oven for about 5 minutes, and it doesn't look raw or anything. It feels kind of firm, a little bit crisp, and so I'm going to call that done. I don't want to taste this while it's boiling, So I'm going to let it stand for about 20 minutes or so and then give it a test taste. It's been about 20 minutes, not boiling anymore. I want to take a test taste. All right, so I'm going to scoop out a little bite there. All right, and I'm going to try it and see what it tastes like. Oh wow. This is absolutely delicious. This is going to make about 5 to 6 servings, maybe more if you're making smaller servings for children or something like that. And like I said, you can do a one pot method too, where you put 2 very large dumplings on top of the Dutch oven, on top of the mixture inside of a Dutch oven. And so that's what it looks like. Isn't that just beautiful? Now, some people, might feel like that, it's a bit too salty, but for me, it's okay. And as I said before, you can adjust the bouillon, use less bouillon cubes to make it less salty. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you try the recipe. Leave comments and questions below. And as I said before, I'll put links to the items that I used to make this. I'll put them in the description box. Thank you very much and have a great day.